Morning, Ian Grange, Development Manager for Norfolk County Football Association. It's Friday the 1st of May, and today I'm going to be recording with Phil Jeggo from the Grounds Maintenance Association. The original plan was to have Phil on our Club Development WebEx taking place on the 7th of May. However, Phil, along with a number of other regional pitch advisors, has been furloughed from Monday. So we've come up with Plan B. We really want to get this information to you, all the information that we were planning to deliver at the Club WebEx next week. So Phil has kindly agreed to make time to spend some time with me this morning. I've got a list of questions for him, but I think that will be most relevant to our grassroots clubs, and I'm going to put them Phil's way, and Phil will endeavour to answer them for us. Phil, you all right?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Hope everyone's safe and well.
Yeah, how's things in your part of the world? All right?
Yeah, it's all good. It's a lot better after the rain we've had this week. There's a lot of groundsmen breathing a sigh of relief because it's typical, isn't it? We had like one of the wettest winters on record, and someone turned the taps off on the sort of start of March, and up until this week we haven't had any rain down here in Essex for about 5 weeks, and it was starting to show as well. So yeah, I think there's a lot of relieved people about, mate. So yeah, but everything else is all good. Cheers, Ian.
Yeah, I've had messages from a lot of clubs who were planning to carry out some works over this period, and they're quite happy because they had specific works in mind which really needed the wet weather to come. So I'm really pleased for them that it has. So yeah, it's been good. Although the sun is shining in sunny Norwich today, you'll be pleased to know.
Yeah, no, it is here. Like I say, that you see on social media, there's a lot of clubs who've carried out renovations already, and like I say, the seed will be sort of breathing a sigh of relief now that it's finally had some moisture. But let's hopefully it will continue. With the soil temperature starting to pick up now, the longer daylight has, so the seed should soon kick in after this bit of rain this week, hopefully.
Excellent. Yeah, fingers crossed. Phil, how long have you been at the Grounds Maintenance Association now?
I started in October 2017. So yeah, it was. I left my previous job on the Friday and started with this role on the Monday. So there's no time to breathe or rest or anything. It was straight into it. So it's coming up for 2.5 years now. I've been within this job. It's been thoroughly enjoyable, to be honest with you. It's been a real eye opener. But I've really enjoyed it, and the challenges out there, which are very similar challenges which a lot of clubs face. But it's great going around meeting people and different characters and that, and to see what they've got and what they haven't got and what state their pitches are in and that. And it's really been good. I mean, it wasn't in the greatest of places when I took on this role, the whole region in general. But I think we're all counties, I'd like to say, Touchwood in a lot better place now where they were sort of 2.5 years ago, certainly when it comes to the PIP programme and supporting that with foot grounds and moving forward.
So your role now is very much off the tools, but I know that you were, prior to this job, you were very much hands-on with tools and on grass pitches. Just share with everyone what you were doing before you joined the GMA.
Right, so I left school. I couldn't wait to leave school. I didn't like school. I wasn't great, except for sport. So as soon as I turned 16, I couldn't wait to leave school. So I didn't really know what to do. I kind of got an interest within sort of the groundsman industry through the cricket club I played at. I was quite fascinated how they prepared pitches. And then I just applied for a job came up at Essex County Cricket Club back in 1988 as a YTS. Those of you old enough to remember the youth training scheme back in the day. So it was £27 a week for the first year, went up to like 35 for the second year. But back then that was a fair bit of money, and it kept me in beer. So I just applied for it. Unfortunately, I got it. Initially, it was on for like the grounds maintenance side, so like putting up chairs and stuff like that. But then a role within the groundsman side at Essex come up sort of a couple of months down the line, and I took the opportunity with both hands. At the same time, with the youth training scheme back in, they paid for day release to college, a bit similar to what the MVQ is now, or whatever the equivalent is. So then I went to Little College First year, I didn't. I mean, back in those days, there wasn't the wealth of courses which are available these days. So basically, then there was like a golf and greenkeeping course, but that was a 2-year course. But to get onto that, you had to do a 1-year horticulture course, which I absolutely hated, which involved double digging, Latin names of plants, and all stuff like that. But you know, we got through that. So yeah, I was like a junior groundsman at Essex until 1991. Then I became deputy head groundsman when my previous boss left, a role which I remained in until April 2002. And then Essex took on the ground in Billericay as a satellite ground, academy ground, second 11 ground. So in April 2002, I went over there and became head groundsman over there. And that was a real item as well, because coming from the professional game, and basically it was a club ground which Essex used. So there's predominantly club cricket being played on there. That was a real eye opener for the first couple of years, and I sort of had to bite my lip a lot, because what obviously goes on at club recreational level is a bit different to the pro game. But yeah, so I was over there. It was a big job. I mean, there was over 4 hectares I had to manage on my own. But yeah, I stuck at it up until say September 2017, and then sort of the toll of sort of hands-on tools and that, my back and my knees, you know, I had various knee operations and that. And this role was kind of perfect, to be honest with you, Ian. And in the sort of latter years of working over there, I started doing some part-time work with a PIP program in Essex FA with my previous counterpart, Danny White, who's done the RPA role in this East region. So I started doing some PIP work for the Essex CFA for about 2 years. I was also delivering like IOG. It was IOG back in then. The GMA is now delivering their training courses prior to taking on this role. And I've also been like a county cricket pitch advisor since 2007 as well. But it was the right step, to be honest with you. My career was heading in that, and so I haven't looked back since, to be honest with you, Ian.
Yeah, brilliant. I imagine that certainly within the pro club, you would have had a decent budget to carry out the works on your outfield and your wicket.
See, everyone expects that. At Essex, obviously, we're not one of the major counties. We've done all right at Essex, but compared to the sort of the test match grounds in cricket, their budget is relatively small in comparison. And when I went over to Billericay, let's say initially it was a club ground. There was the same as most of you guys out there now. You know, there's all the machinery is quite old, second-hand machinery. I say one of the grounds didn't have any drainage on it. It was on heavy soil. It was just permanently flooded. So the budget wasn't great. Oh, it was a lot better than most places. Obviously, the essentials were always paid for and covered in that. And subsequently, over the period of time, we had to install a drainage system on one ground. We had to rip the square up on one. So it was quite fortunate in that aspect. And like I say, all the materials, your consumables, seeds, fertilizers, and that were all paid for. But any machines now, were always sort of, they broke down on the job, as they often did, because they were quite old. And so I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. So you had to sort of be sort of about your wits. And I got quite good at being a mechanic as well, working with a lot of old machinery. But a lot of it was it was down to like the hard work. I was quite fortunate. It was a full-time role there. Like I say, I had nearly 50 cricket pitches to look after in terms of two squares of 50 pitches. Like I say, the outfield were just 4 hectares, and I was just managing that on my own up until the last 2 or 3 years when I got apprentices in. But a lot of it was purely about the work that I put into the ground, not as opposed to the budget. I say, we was quite fortunate. We was a lot better off than most. But at the same time, there was still other grounds similar to what I was working at who had a far bigger budget than what we had. But say, I'm not singing my own trumpet, but say it can be achieved. But a lot of it is what actually you as an individual puts into that ground. You get rewarded back, even if you've got the minimum sort of machinery and budgets as well. That still applies today, mate.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, a kind of pertinent question in a sense that a number of our grassroots clubs will have no budget. I think at best they'll have a small one to carry out that they want to do whilst we're in this period. What works can our clubs be carrying out in this period with little or no budget, would you say?
If you've got a really small budget, then you'd always aim to focus on your high use areas. By that you mean your goal mouths, your centre circles, any other sort of localised areas on your pitches that need repairing. By that we're talking about, you know, trying to seed it if you can, try and apply a little bit of top dressing if possible, and then potentially, you know, feed those small areas. I mean, it's same with aeration. When it comes to aeration, you know, we've all got hand forks and that out there, you know, to relieve the compaction in those small areas as well. You know, you can go in there and just, you know, relieve the compaction, stick the fork in, wiggle it around a bit and lift the turf up a bit to actually help relieve the compaction. So if you are on a real tight budget, then I'd encourage clubs to, as a bare minimum, just trying to focus on those high use areas. And like I say, the same would apply to any area on your pitch. If you've got an issue with a low way, which is holding water and that, you can sort of lift it up a bit and apply some a minimal amount of top dressing to help try and increase the surface levels on it. So even I'd say at the real basic level, clubs can still be doing that. And obviously, you know, given the weather patterns are, you know, the less areas you open out to repair, most clubs won't have access to irrigation and have to rely on Mother Nature. So if you are just focused on small areas, you can potentially then hand water them, even if it's by watering can as the worst resort. So that basically, in terms of end of season repairs, mowing regimes would be quite crucial moving forward. If you are fortunate to cut your own pitches and that, just keep ticking the grass over, going in once a week if possible, to keep on top of the grass. To say that's one of the cheapest things you can do if you cut on a regular basis of your grass and sort of alternate the direction of cut each time you cut. Now, I naturally encourage the grass to tiller, what we call tiller, which means thicken it out. And that doesn't cost nothing to do for clubs on small budgets, you know. So say every time you cut, if you just change the direction you cut, so that would naturally encourage the grass to thicken out on its own accord. So they're kind of the real basic things you can do if budgets are really, really tight.
So if you were at a club right now, what would be the top three? What would be your top three in terms of prioritizing?
With a budget or without a budget?
Without.
I'd say, first of all, do spot repairs to localised areas on your pitches. Mowing regimes, mowing frequencies, your mowing cuts, how often you cut, and say the direction of cut, that'd probably be number two. And the third one would be some form of aeration, albeit by handful, just to localised areas. I think they're probably the top three you can do on no budget at all, or very limited budget. And by if you're carrying out repairs, renovations, even as localised areas, just always make sure that you use the right materials. By that I mean the right seeds, the right top dressing. It's always one of my bugbears. You go around clubs and builder sand's always a common one in. You know, always just see the sand chucked in the goal mouth and that. And actually, that's doing no good at all to the soil, and it's actually impeding the drainage even more because of the particle size sand. And it's the same with seed. Some people will try and cut corners in terms of the seed and trying to get a really cheap grass seed and wonder why it doesn't germinate. So if you are going to do it, you know, money is tight. Make sure you buy the right materials to actually carry out any repairs.
Yeah. So don't cut corners is a big message for you.
It's crucial. There's a funny story. I won't name the club. I won't name the county, but I went there. And I looked in this, can have a look in the shed. And I went and looked in the shed. They was using this horse paddock grass seed, which was like 80% annual meadow grass. And they wondered why I had loads of the wrong type of grass species across the pitch. And they was using, let's say, a similar fertiliser, which has been used for horse paddocks and that. They was getting it at 15 quid a bag, the seed and the fertiliser. And wonder why, and their pitch got graded poor. But that's a classic example, and so you see it. And another one as well, you know, certainly up in Norfolk, you know, a lot of big farming community. Farmers can be a good resource, but again, farmers will tend to put on the wrong type of materials onto your pitches. Yeah. And if you're ever engaging in you know, working with farmers, so local farmer kind of say, I can fertilise your pitch for you. You've got to be very careful to ensure that that product, what he's putting on the pitch, if it hasn't got on the packaging used on amenity turf, then it's actually illegal to use.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
farmers mean well, but they're farmers, and it's a different sort of ball game. But again, that's a common mistake. People, you come across is you're putting down like 100%, 50% nitrogen, whatever, and wonder why your grass is just growing like stink. But like I say, more often than not, those products are not suitable for amenity turf. And like I say, unless on the packaging it's got suitable for amenity turf, and it's actually technically illegal to use on sports pitches.
Yeah, that's something that potentially could happen here with rural nature of our county. You've mentioned cutting and mowing. So on that note, what length would you be cutting grass to?
Yeah, this time of year you'd be looking around 40-50 mil. Ideally, if you can get on there one cut a week where possible. But always remember, when you're cutting, only to ever remove a third of the grass plant leaf at one stage. So that's why we encourage you to try and do a frequency of cutting. I think after this rain now, with the soil temperatures, what I alluded to earlier, the grass is going to really start to pick up in terms of growth. So ideally around about 40 to 50 mil is a good height to maintain it at. And like I say, just please ensure that you only ever remove one third of the grass plant leaf. When you're cutting, don't sort of suddenly go from 50 mil and cut it down to 20 mil one go and wonder why it's not looking great for itself. And also this time of year, like I say, you don't want to stress the grass out. If it's under stress, if it's susceptible to diseases or it's turning yellow and that, so you don't want to be adding to that by shocking the grass and say removing the blades. You also want to make sure that whatever machine you're using, the blades are sharp, because otherwise they can cause cutting and tearing of the grass leaf, which then leave it open to diseases. That's kind of what you should be aiming for, to be honest with you. But I say, if we get the summers like we've had the last couple of years, then the best thing you do is actually keep off it. If we get really prolonged dry spells, it's just don't cut it at all. This is where like the rotaries are quite good in terms of like to cut the sort of stalky meadow grass plants down a bit, and they're a lot cheaper to maintain. Obviously, replacing the blades on a rotary roller mower or a rotary mower is a lot cheaper than a cylinder mower. So that's what you kind of should be looking to do, mate. To be honest with you. So, in terms of like why you're leaving the grass longer, so like with reduced wear and tear on the grass and no need to provide a player experience, you can leave it that longer within reason. That like the increased height will result in grass being under a lot less stress, which I've mentioned to, and more drought tolerant, quite sort of apt in our area of the country. It will be slightly more of an open sward, so less thick. It will reduce disease pressures, less humidity amongst the leaves, etc. And will encourage greater root growth as more leaves means more food produced by photosynthesis. So consideration as well, we just mentioned on grass cutting, should be given to removal of grass clippings. Most people will let it fly, and by doing that, you're actually not losing any of the nutrients, certainly at the lower level. So when you're cutting, if you're letting the clippings fly, then it's actually you're not losing any nutrients at all. So if I don't cut the grass at all, if you can't get to your ground and that, obviously it will grow very tall. The surface will become very thin as a result. It will try to set seed. This will result in an even thinner surface. It will be challenging to get the surface back into the suitable playing surface when we can start playing sport again. So that's why we try and encourage, if you can, cutting is up there in terms of the top practices you can do.
It's a trade-off, isn't it? Because weather that we've had this week is brilliant in terms of aeration and the opportunity. And I know that clubs are having valley drains carried out this week, and this weather will ultimately extend the window to enable verti drains to be carried out before the ground becomes too hard. But the trade-off to that is the rain that we get means that the grass is going to grow, which means that it needs to be cut. Great again if you're putting seed down, but if you're not and you're getting a good length in your grass, then you've got to get out and cut it. So it's all swings and roundabouts and a constant work for our clubs. On the dressing, on the grass seed front, so a number of our clubs I know have carried out some overseed works in predominantly the goal mouth and in the kind of centre thoroughfare of the pitch, but some of them have been using top dressing What are the chances of germination without top dressing?
Uh, as long as it's sown correctly into the soil, so it's got soil to seed contact. By that, I just don't mean like you come to your pitch, you just get a bag of grass seed, chuck it on the surface, and expect it to grow. That the grass seed plant needs something to sit in, little trays, little plots. You can create that ideally, mechanical wise, but you don't need a sort of machine to do that. It like comes back to a fork or a rake. Just rake up the surface to make sure those seeds have got something to sit into. And then the seed will still germinate even without top dressing. But it's all about sowing it into the ground correctly. And like I say, not just chucking it on the surface and expecting it to grow. If you're fortunate enough, depends on where you are, location-wise. Obviously, if it's one applied to sort of public open spaces or whatnot, then that's where the use of things like germination seeds will come in quite handy to get the seed up and growing in small areas or scaffold nets or whatever. But the seed will grow, germinate, as long, even without top dressing, providing, say, it's been sown correctly. Like I say, for that, it needs to have good soil to seed contact. Ideally, you would advise a thin layer of top dressing where possible, but that shouldn't stop the seed germinating and establishing, providing that you're able to keep it moist and irrigate as and when needed. But again, it comes back to initially to if you can break up the surface and relieve the compaction, because to get the seed established, you need the rooting to get down, and if the surface underneath the subsoil structure is really compact, that rooting's really going to struggle. So say it comes back to initially before you start overseeding, if you can break up that soil and relieve the compaction slightly, albeit with a hand fork or ideally a machine, that's a good starting point to actually get the rooting down. But yeah, it was certainly germinating even without top dressing. So as long as it's sown correctly.
Good advice. One of the things I noticed when I go around our clubs is that quite a few of them, they'll have their rollers tucked away somewhere at the back of the club. And I always ask, do you use that? Do you use that roller? And quite often the answer will be yes, we do, in order to improve the surface levels of the pitch. What would your advice be to clubs who are thinking about getting the big old rollers out over this period and rolling the pitches?
It's a simple answer. If you've got big heavy rollers, scrap them. They're doing more harm than good. It is a bit of a myth actually helping restore the surface levels. Certainly in the moment you won't be restoring surface levels. It doesn't actually restore surface levels. The only thing to help restore surface levels is top dressing, and all you're doing is just adding to compaction. I say compaction is the number one issue of all football pitches up and down the country. And you see it so often, say you've got a big old agricultural roller, a really heavy roller tucked away in a corner, and it gets used. Rolling's fine, but you're talking about the weight of rollers, say, on quadruplays or multi-turf grooming tools, or even the rollers on front of your mowers. That's more than enough weight for actually what football pitches require. But certainly for heavy rolling, that's a big no-no. They say they just be chucked away. And like I say, if you do it at the moment when the ground's dry as well, if you're even thinking about it, that can lead to further issues within the soil structure. Normally rolling when very dry will cause root breaks underneath. So instead of the roots growing down vertical, they root to a point and then start to grow horizontal. So rolling can cause a lot of issues under the soil. And like I say, it's a bit of a myth that actually they restore surface playing levels when actually they don't. So if you're even considering it, I'd advise to say don't even bother. Like I say, scrap the roller. I say the weight on your machines, if you're fortunate enough to have mowers and that, are more than adequate of what you should be putting onto football pitches.
Yeah. Okay. Good advice. I mean, and on that then, why is aeration so important to our pitches? If rolling's no good, why is aeration so important?
It's crucial. It is probably the most beneficial thing you can do to pitches. It will how does it aeration help the soil? It will increase the infiltration rates. So that's the way water penetrates the surface. We'll be able to explore more of the soil profile. This will help produce a surface which can better withstand any wear and tear when play starts again. Aeration also helps with the following benefits. So it improves water uptake, it improves nutrients uptakes, reduces water runoff and puddling, encourages stronger roots, reduces soil compaction, which is crucial. But also in times of dry spells as well, it also improves the grass plant's drought stress tolerance as well. The better, the stronger the root development you've got within the soil profile.
Yeah.
So it's probably the most beneficial thing you can do to your football pitches out there if you are fortunate enough to get, aeration, deep aeration of some description.
Yeah, I know my own club. We've started to aerate the pitches, and already we can see the benefits of that. That's clear to see, and it's not an instant. It's probably taken us 2 or 3 vertidrains, but actually it's making a real difference now. So yeah, I definitely recommend the clubs getting involved and getting some air into their pitches for certain.
Yeah, like you're saying, it won't have an initial impact, or it will, but you'll need to sort of repeat that process sort of over 12 to 18 months to start seeing the real benefits of carrying out any form of deep aeration.
Yeah, I think sometimes when clubs have a vertidrain done, the danger can be that you think there will be an instant fix, and actually it takes a bit of time and a bit of perseverance in order to get the rewards that you're seeking.
It's crucial with aeration, especially not just aeration, any operation you're carrying it out across your football pitches. It's about doing it at the right time in the right conditions where the ground and soil conditions are at their optimum. So that will make a massive benefit as well. By doing it vertidrain when the pitches are sort of saturated, it's actually going to have no impact at all and actually make the problems worse. So it's all about the crucial timings of it. And like I say, I'd imagine up until the last couple of weeks, the ground was getting to that stage where it's probably too hard to actually get a vertidrain in. But hopefully after this rain, that may have relieved the problems a bit.
Yeah, I was speaking to Tim Hales late last week, and he was really looking more hopeful for some wet weather because he was getting near the point where he wasn't getting the depth they wanted with the tines for the vertidrain machine. So yeah, this weather will certainly have continued that window that Tim and other grounds maintenance contractors have to be able to vertidrain pitches. So we're very grateful for that. My last question really is that I know that some clubs, as I've alluded to already, are carrying out works. Others might be considering it, but are unsure around what they can and can't do with social restrictions and guidance from the government that's currently out there. I know that the Grounds Maintenance Association have put some guidance out there for our grassroots and volunteer groundsmen. Are you able just to, for the last question, just shed some light on what that guidance is?
Yeah, well, we at the GMA, the Grounds Management Association, I keep remembering to say that, formerly the IMA, we've at the start of this, first week in April, last week in March, we've created a really good and useful COVID-19 page, which deals with all possible situations, all the guideline and information relevant is on there. But like I say, if you are fortunate, we'd always stress that you should always follow the government guidelines. But I'd say the COVID page we've created, and it's open to non-members as well, so you don't have to be a member of the GMA to access it. You can go on there and say it's got a fantastic source from all forms of the game, really, from professional level down to your volunteers. We've got interim works as well in terms of what you should be doing, created documents. They will be updated as and when. And it's the same with the guidance as well. But like I say, we can't stress enough that if you are fortunate enough to go out and use it as your daily form of exercise or whatever day, at all times to say follow the government guidelines on social distancing, etc. We're trying to, if you can go, obviously it's crucial. Your pitches will still be there if you can't get out and carry out any work in 2 months' time or whatever. But if you can, where possible, just try and, even if it's just your regular cutting or whatever. I know it's an issue with, say, local authority grounds or parish council grounds where they've been redeployed and that within the region. And so if you are fortunate enough to carry out sort of minor works on your ground sort of once a week as a maximum, that's going to be better than nothing. So that's the place I'd recommend people to go to for any information. Like I say, the monthly, the interim works was created in April. That should be updated this month as well, because obviously that was sort of end of season. But I'd steer people in that direction, to be honest with you, Ian.
Yeah, I mean, what we've been doing for our club development WebEx is that we've delivered. We've done two now. We've been putting the guidance from the GMA within the presentation, so we're directing our clubs and groundsmen to that. It's a really good resource, and I've had a nosy around, and there's lots of good information on there. So yeah, we'll continue to hit that message home to our volunteers to keep their eyes on the GMA website throughout this period as advice changes.
And also they've got a big, they're doing a big webinar, WebEx themselves. Is it next week, the week after, about fit for play, return to play. On it covers all sports. So just follow social media or the website. We have more details when that.
Okay.
Again, that's open to everyone as well. So,
okay.
Yeah, I forget the date at the top of my head, and I should know it.
No,
But
that's fine. What I'll do, that's a really good heads up. So what I will do is I will put a bit of research in ahead of next Thursday, and I'll put that.
I can find the date out today, mate. It's on somewhere. I've got it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I'll ping it across to you, but that'd be a good guidance point as well. So our key account managers, our program director, is going to be doing that. It's a nationwide WebEx, in terms of basically cover all sports. So that'll be a good resource as well in terms of clubs. So I'm pretty sure it's not next week, the week after, but I'll confirm the date with you and get it back to you ahead of next Thursday, your WebEx next Thursday. Yeah. Just so guys and girls can go on there and like I say, that'll be a good source of support as well moving forward to them.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and that's really well received, I'm sure. Thanks, Phil. Really appreciate you giving up your time to share that information with us. I know there's lots of good information there. What we'll do with this interview is we'll put it onto our YouTube channel. We'll try and get that done as soon as we can, but we'll stick it onto YouTube, and then we'll be able to post about it in terms of social media, so that we can get this information shared. But Phil, thank you. Have a great weekend. Try to keep busy as well during the time that unfortunately you're going to be off for. And most importantly, stay safe. All right.
Yeah, same to you. Thanks Ian for giving us the opportunity, and to say what Ian's alluded to. Everyone, hopefully, just stay safe. You know, your grants will still be there. What we're more worried about is actually the people who maintain them are not going to be there to look after them moving forward. So that's the biggest message we can say. So stay safe, everyone, and take care.
Lovely. Thanks, Phil.
Cheers, Ian. Thank you.